far as streaming from the iPad, so we'll see how this works. I'm just kind of going over a picture that I took of some artwork that my dad did a while back, and kind of going over how you can pull this in and make it more digital. With this, we don't really need to make it digital. This is just showing how you can use Procreate similarly to I guess, an airbrush, where you can apply masks and then use brushes to hit certain areas that don't affect others, kind of like removing a piece from, like cutting out a small piece of film and removing it and spraying and then going back. So anyway, with this, I already went over this first one. I just have in the calligraphy set, I like to use the monoline brush because it gives me a very even brush. This is a little pixelated. I might need to start a new file sometime with more resolution. When you do that, you can start from up here and go add, or when you go back to your gallery, yeah, this is only about half the size that I normally work in. So I might erase that real quick. Maybe I'll just upscale it. Crop and resize. Make it bigger. Settings 4,000 by 3,000. Sample. Yep. Anyway, all it's doing is adding more pixels, so it's not as, it's not quite as pixelated as when you zoom in, but now it looks a lot better. Anyway, you don't need to do that. Just noticing this. So with this, I took this picture and it kind of is a little grainy, or I think we actually found this online, if I recall correctly. I'm just going to zoom in, and I'm using, again, the calligraphy set, and I'm using a red color so that I can see it. If I was using black, I wouldn't really be able to see very well. And I'm just going to draw along the edge of everything. In this case, where this hat is there, I'm going to imagine where the hat is. And kind of trace around it. I might put this brim of the hat right there. In this case, just trace around it. Right now, I don't need to be too detailed with it. Okay, this is the top of another hat. See, that looks cool. For now, I'm going to leave this here. There will be a cut there later, but we'll be doing that on a separate time. So I'm just using the iPad and scrolling in and drawing a quick line of it. If there's a cutout like this, oh, this isn't quite cut out, but if there was a cutout, then you would draw it as well. So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to draw these little lines. I'm just going to fill them in. Again, right now we're getting close. It can be perfect if you'd like, or you can just do it pretty close right now and then work on it later. You probably have to. This looks like it's the guy's foot. Nice. Now we're going down into the horse. See, like these cutouts, you'll just do that. You don't really need to, like, you can do whatever you want on the inside because you're going to fill it in just a minute, and there's an easy way to do that. In this case, this looks like it connects, so I'll make it connect. Just undo. You tap with 2 fingers to undo. You realize you kind of got a little bit close to the edge. One thing I'll also mention is that while I'm doing this, when I imported this photo, I imported it into a layer, like layer 1, and I can turn it on and off. And then I push this plus button in the top corner, right there. And now I have an extra layer. I don't want this one. But I'm working in this layer, so I selected this layer, and now I'm drawing in this layer. If I was drawing in the same layer as the artwork, then when I turn off the artwork later, it would be just part of it. It's like drawing onto the picture, which I want to draw on a layer above the picture. And layers, sometimes you can just think of as pieces of clear tracing paper laid on top of each other. And so you can be drawing on one piece of tracing paper without messing with what is actually underneath it. That's how kind of all of the layers work. And you can rearrange the order of them. You can use some as, you know, an example or like a reference, and then you can get rid of it afterwards. All right. almost done with this guy. Do that. Back out. If there's a picture like this part with the rope, I'll just do a single line. Same with this and with this. It's a little bit thicker. You could make it thicker if you want. Some sort of stick. What is he holding? Or a gun? Oh, or is it like the whip? I have no idea what that is. Somebody should tell me. His hand is here, but for now, I'm just going to color it in because we'll be adding that on top later. And now I'm done. So, done with this part. We'll add in this part of that. Oh, I didn't realize this was two people, so we got to cut out in the middle. All right. Nice, that looks better. Now to fill it in, you'll just go up to where the red circle is, like up here, and you'll click and hold on the circle. I'm going to do that. And you'll drag it out. So you can see I'm dragging it, and I'll drag it onto an area. Boop. And it'll color it in. It'll get usually pretty close, but sometimes you'll need to go around the edges if it's not perfect. And like just kind of fill some spots in. I'll just do that for there too. The other spots, maybe some smoothing out spots. Like this. Looks mostly good. Cut that out. Get that dot out. Some more dots down the bottom. Oh, some over here by his shoe. Yeah, when it tries to fill in, it usually gets pretty close, but if there's any small areas near the edges, it kind of has a problem with it sometimes. Okay, that looks good enough for this too. And I was just going to do those two, but I'll just do this last one real quick. So this one is a bit more interesting because it's kind of got a hand on it. And it's not really black. This one I'll probably just fill in because why not? And here's his hat. More or less. I'll just cut that out, even though it's part of his face. Oh, I won't do that then, because it's part of his face. We'll add on that light layer later. Not sure what this is or this, but I'll draw them anyway. Maybe if this was a more detailed picture, I could have seen what that is, but this is still just a good example of kind of what's going on. That looks fine. Find that just a bit. Down, spike, whatever this is. Something on the horse or his foot. Oh, messed up. Go down the leg. Back up. Yeah, an interesting foot. For now, I'll just cut this out. Actually, no, I won't. I'll fill it in because I keep thinking I can just do that, but it'll be easier to add in later. Oops. Okay. So add that in. Instead of just not drawing, we'll add a white layer on top. So a layer of like essentially tracing paper with white paint on it. That's kind of what we'll do for those highlights. And we'll do that with masks. If you see this part I kind of messed up, I can go to the eraser and just kind of erase it. Or I can undo, depending on how fast you're going. Or how much you drew before doing that. Do this little tail thing. Whatever that is, maybe the back leg. So all these times that I'm rotating the canvas, I'm just doing it with 2 fingers really quickly. Because sometimes it's easier, for example, for me to use my pencil to like stroke left to right like this than it is for me to go like down like this. Like that's harder to do whereas this is just like flick with my wrist. So sometimes with a lot of these lines, I'll try and find and rotate until I can get a nice smooth left to right stroke on whatever I'm doing. So if I wanted to get this part right here, I turn it like that. I'm just using 2 fingers to like rotate. I'll get this part. Yeah, it looks a little thicker on the bottom, so I'll hit it again. And because this is really small, I'll just fill it in. Okay, good enough. Now I'll drag the color on and check the corners. Because I did this hat the way I did, I need to also fill in the hat. Nice. Let's hit this part just to make it, what does it need to be? I want it to be looking good. This part comes in a bit. Any other random spots? Yep. See down here, right there on the toes. Here. Okay, just getting closer. I see some spots that I missed right here. All right, that looks good. So now I've kind of got all these out, and they're all just a straight outline. They're red. So if I, sorry, go into my layers and I turn off the background, now I'm left with just this outline, right? They're still pretty pixelated, but they are nice. And if you're working at a higher resolution to begin with, it would look even more sharper, but this is just where I ended up. If I want to move it around, because I notice it's not really centered, I can hit this arrow, and I can kind of drag it around. And if I want to make it bigger right now, I can drag it. It'll resample it, which means it'll kind of sometimes make the edges a bit more blurry. But it actually did a pretty good job. You see what I mean with I like super blur the edges instead of that, which doesn't look bad, actually kind of smooths it out. But ideally, it's better to resize that JPEG I was tracing first and then to trace over this. That way if I go in and fix a part with this like this, you can see like the brush doesn't really match. It's because of that. So something to just keep in mind with that. You want to always start at the what you're going to be painting as. Now with this, there's some parts that I'm looking at that look a little odd, like specifically down here on the bottom. And then we don't have any of the highlights on here as well. So the first thing I'll do with this is, now that I have this masked, this is essentially a mask, I'm going to go and I'm going to swipe left on this layer and duplicate it. And this first one I'm just going to rename. I'm going to call it mask. I'm going to keep it as mask. I'm just going to turn it off. I want to keep it for later. Now this one here, I will click on it, go to this little magic wand that's up here in the corner, right here. And I'm going to go hue, saturation, and brightness. And now at the bottom of the screen, you can see I can change the colors to whatever I want. I can change the saturation to whatever I want, or the brightness. So I kind of like this. I'm just kidding. Make it black. No saturation, doesn't matter what color. Right, that's already looking a lot better. So now I'm going to just click that little paintbrush thing again. And now it's black. It looks great. Whoops. Good way. Over here on the side of my tools, right here, there's a little arrow right there, but I don't like this little arrow right here. But normally it's not there. I have it there because I have a different app open. But this is the thing to make your brush size smaller or bigger. And then the one below it is the opacity. And then that square button in the middle, it lets you eyedrop it. No, go away. Nope, go away. It lets you eyedrop. So if you click this, now I have this eyedropper. You can see I can pick white or black. I'm going to pick black. Now my color is black. It's the same black as this. So if I paint anywhere, it'll look fine. I'm just going to make it a bit bigger to kind of try and match it a little bit more. All right. So with this now, I'm going to turn this layer off. Turn back on my layer underneath. That's a problem. So they don't match up anymore. Well, I'm going to resize that background now. So I'm going to click the background layer and then click the arrow up in the top left. Now I'm going to resize and scale this till it matches. that close? Not quite. Let me zoom this out just a bit. All right, and now just drag it around so it matches. Looks like I rotated it, so I'll grab that top green circle. And how close is this? That's pretty close. Tap circle again. Now I'm going to turn off that black layer in front, which is also the red layer. We create a new layer. I'm going to drag it up on top of this, and this one is going to be highlight, so I might as well just rename it. This is going to be highlight. Yep. Highlights. And then this layer 2, I'm going to rename. This is going to be the base color, mask, and then that. So this is where the masks come in. If there's a couple of different ways you can use masks. One is you draw a line and then it draws inside it. But it's going outside of it. Oh, that's fine. Fun to figure this out. So how masks work is depending on the amount of color that's in it, whether it's black or red or black or white, it'll either be more or less transparent. So right now, because this is black, it's causing issues because you can see like when I draw on this layer, this highlight layer, it's doing two different colors. And the reason it's doing that is because of the mask colors. Well, that's messed up. Because this thing's not all the way that color. I'm going to delete that, make a new one. Hot clipping mask. This one, what is going on here? Okay. This is one of these little tutorial things. It's like, hey, I didn't really do this before. I'm going to explain how I do it, which means, yeah, there's a fair bit amount of me going, oops, I'm trying to fix it later. Just going to fill this in. Okay, now with this, I'm just going to turn this one, saturation down, brightness down. So that's the mask. Take this clipping mask, layer 4. There we go. Is that what I want it to do? Hold on. I don't want this to be white. What happens if I do white? What is going on here? Oh, that's what it's doing. This layer is not acting as the mask. This layer, layer 4, is the mask. So this needs to go up here. This layer needs to be cleared. Now this layer will be, oops, not the mask. The clipping mask. And now what this does is everything underneath it. There we go. So, see how I can draw as much as I want. Maybe I'll do it red so you can see. If I'm drawing here and I come near the edge, see how it just goes off? Even though I am going back and forth, the only parts that are showing up is what's inside this mask. And this mask underneath it is being placed. It's like you're using this to cut out, but this is the clipping mask that's doing that. Anyway, like you're cutting it out with an X-Acto blade if you're doing airbrushing. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay. So now with this layer, you could draw certain areas on it, and I'll show you what I mean with that. If I turn this layer on, this one off, this mask should still work. It's not still working because it needs to mask it. Okay, let me think about the best way to do this then. Okay, I'm going to delete that mask, turn this off. On this layer, I'm going to go through. Now I'm just looking at the normal picture again. And I'm just going to try this and see if it works. With this hat, I'm going to do a red outline around the part that will be like have airbrush on it. Actually, no, that's perfect. That's how it is. With this, I'm going to use this tool to cut out an area around where I want the actual airbrush to go. I'll do that. And now with this color, I'll come in with a white, switch it to an airbrush. I'll do a soft brush, and it's huge, so I don't want it so big. And I'll do some white. So now when I turn this layer back on, it's underneath it. Oops, was I working in that? I better not have been. I was. Crap. Let me undo that now. New one. Highlight. Do this. Whoa. Select just this. Now airbrush a bit in to kind of make it match. Now if I go turn this back on, yeah, that's looking better. Still not perfect, so let me just brush this on a bit more. Smaller. But you see how if I do that, I'm going over the edge? You can still kind of do that by then just going through like this, selecting this part and hitting erase. So you can still get a nice hard edge on it. But the reason I'm doing that is because what I'm going to do after that is use this as a mask. Hold on. And this is going to mask, oops, nope. This is going to clipping mask. Is it the other way around? Clipping mask, this goes up here. This will be clipping mask. Aha, there it is, okay. So this highlight is being clipped onto this. So no matter where I paint the highlights, it will stay inside of that. And so if I get rid of that background layer, you can see wherever I'm painting this, it'll work. Awesome, that's what I want. Now with this, I might turn off, no, I'm not gonna do that yet. Maybe I'll try pulling this up. Okay, work please, there we go. Okay, so that's the original. Let me turn this off. Oh, why is that clipping mask? I don't want that mask. I'll draw a mask right here. I'll try and get it just along the edge of whatever is being kind of lit up. You can go outside it like that, easy, because that won't matter as much because it'll be outside of the main mask. So I'm going to do this. It's still looking pretty good. Make this go back down. Connect. Okay. Now this part, oh, can I do it that way? Okay, I totally could do it that way. Interesting. I'm just going to paint it all completely white. No, but make it opaque or high opacity. Perfect. I got that. Can also probably just use this very small brush and just hit. Yeah, I could do that too. Make it a bit bigger. There we go. Looks like he's got a little bit of shine right here. So later, once we have this mask, this is what I was getting at, and I was just confused. Once we have this mask, we'll use this as a mask and then paint the highlights inside of this. So then you can like use this as the mask, and then you just paint the shadow inside it or the highlight. So I'll do that here too. It kind of looks like it's a bunch part of his hat. And then if you're doing it on the outside, it can go way outside because you won't see that later. Drag this out, drag this out. What are you doing? Am I working on? I'm not working in this stupid layer. I'm working in the This is dumb. Okay. Okay, I have this selected. Good. Go to highlight. Now fill it. Oops. Now fill it in. Why did it not fill it in? Okay. Is it really going to be like that? It is. That's weird. Turn that off. Why is this on? Oh, that's what I was doing. Okay, so it was doing it right. I just need to unhook this from a clipping mask, move this above here. Yeah, that's what I need to do. Now I'm working that layer. Yep. All right, so this is looking good. And I'll hit some of this. It's got a bit on his chin. It's a color that kind of bleeds out. So again, that can just kind of go whatever I want. This will kind of come out like this. So this is going to be an area for highlights. You can get pretty detailed with this. This will be the mask later. So I'm going to make my brush a bit smaller. Kind of go around the edges. These can be super, super fine, like as fine as you want, because you're just probably going to hit it just very, very lightly with white airbrush. Oh, this is a very different thing too than normal airbrushing. Normal airbrushing, you work from light to dark, meaning you keep the light areas masked and you slowly paint more and more over it. With digital, you can kind of do it however, in whichever order you want. Because you can paint white over black, just like you can black over white. Okay, where are some more highlights? Here's another highlight. Oh, that's weird. All right. Another one. Thing is, I don't remember if we cut that out. This is kind of why I was saying don't cut that out. Just make it all one color because we're going to add this in later. All right, that's looking pretty close. This is a little bit more white up here. Actually, let's make the whole hat that color because it kind of does have a bit of a shine across the whole thing. Okay. Or it'd be a better, more pronounced way to do this on a different one. Okay, I'll do that here. Again, I'm just adding in white and purposely going outside the edges because it'll be masked off. Here's a little bit of that. Here's a little bit. Even if it's like just a little bit, it doesn't matter because you will paint in a little bit later. But this whole thing being kind of one block, but it'll just have different shades of white in it. I'm just going to make it all one big block. And the horse head kind of looks a bit like that too. I'm specifically going to leave the spots that are black because we don't want to paint any white there. But the spots that could potentially be any shade of white other than black, I'm just going to fill in. Same with these ears. A little bit like that. Goes up. There you go. Looks like his hand fits in that category too. Do that. Like that. His hat definitely does. So I'm going to kind of do the whole thing. And this other rider. Let's get his hat. This guy seems to have the most amount of shading on his horse and his hand. So I'm just going to hit his whole hand. Hit this. Leave that kind of black line across it. A bit. Add a little bit of core, direct lighting, like knock this off so it doesn't look so generic. Maybe around and kind of make this guy's face a bit more. At this point, you can just detail this as much as you want. But this is the mask. This is the equivalent of on an airbrush, you're cutting out the edges. So these edges right here are what you're cutting and you'll be lifting out. So now what I'll do is the final part. I'll make this almost completely see-through. And I'll click on it and I'll click select. Now what this did is it selected all of the area that was white. You can't see it. If I zoom in really closely, you can see how some of these areas have these little moving lines on it and some don't. You'll really see this on this layer. So if I go to a new layer, now this layer is going to be the actual highlight. Switch to airbrushing. How about a soft brush? There we go. And now if I paint in, you can see what it's doing. It's painting only in the area that I have the mask on, right? I don't want to do that quite yet. Maybe I'll turn this one up just a bit. Yeah, give me a little bit of a reference. Now with this, I might make the airbrush kind of big. Just kind of lightly hint at color. Sometimes you can make the airbrush really big, like massive. And just kind of tap a bit. I'll give you a little bit of lighting along one edge. If I want more along this hat, I might make it a little bit smaller and just kind of tap it a bit. Same with this horse. Like this hat, I need to add some. This hat, I know I need to add some. This horse, I need to add very, very light. That. Same with these legs. I'll add some more in a minute. The hat, this horse goes in a bit too much actually. And I'll make it smaller and I'll go in and I'll kind of do a little bit more around the hat. I'll fix that part later. I think you know what I'm talking about. Making it smaller. And you can always smudge it as well. I don't like that color. What I was smudging my hairbrush, soft brush. Nice little smudge. That works. Okay, back to the airbrush. I feel like I need to fix this. Oops, too small. I need to fix this a bit. And maybe hit just a little bit more around here. Smudge that a bit. You could just put another mask on top of this to make it a bit easier. I'm just being lazy right now. I shouldn't be. I should do it the right way. Maybe smudge with a bit more power. That works. And hit this with a bit more airbrush. Not too much. Opacity down. Too much. There we go. And maybe a little bit more along the top lines of this horse. Definitely his hand. Along the side of the horse. Yeah. Not too much. A bit bigger. Slightly. Ooh, close. Slightly touching. Okay. Now if I go back, I'm going to turn off this highlight layer. And you can see kind of what it's doing. This highlight is giving it some depth, but I want to add my own depth without seeing. That was just letting me kind of see where it was. Now I'm like, oh, okay, I need to actually go add this in now. Knock it a bit bigger. Highlights on this face, on his hat, and this part down here. This part on his hand needs a bit. This horse's back ear needs a bit more. This side doesn't really need any, so I'll probably just use the eraser and airbrush with a soft brush, maybe with a blending brush instead. And now if I erase, see how I was doing that? Yeah, that's what I want. I want to like nicely fade this in. So I'm using the eraser to knock some of these edges off. Same with this. I'll probably just knock off. Oh, this guy's hand went crazy because I used black there. Knock that off. Maybe fade this out a little. I think I could also smudge it. Ooh, that's interesting. It's a different way of dealing with it. Albeit a more destructive way. I like that. For something like this, where I really wanted to like nicely fade, I use a bigger brush. Just kind of slowly keep dabbing at it until it's invisible. Same with the back of the hat. Same with the back and maybe the front of this hat. With this guy's hand. This hat could be a little bit darker overall. This part of the horse, like, is very stark. So I'm gonna just kind of knock some of these edges off just a bit. This would be like spraying black. Actually, the whole thing needs a bit. So I'm gonna do that. There we go. Just erase everything just a bit. And now really go in and fine tune a couple of spots. Okay. A bit bigger. Knock this part off. Alright. Yep. Maybe not so strong. That's better. I actually have to go over it a couple times before it actually does something. Which is good when you just want just a little. Get it bigger and this whole thing. Now I'm just kind of blending it through the airbrush and using the erase tool to really erase this white outline just along the edges so that it really smooths it out. If I want to add more, I can go back and add more. That's pretty, oops, pretty crazy, so I'll just maybe add just a little. The horse probably should. Back to this guy. Maybe I'll add in a little bit of white. Oops. See, it's painting on the black right there. So probably need to do another select. Now when I'm painting this layer, it's only sticking in there again. That's the importance of doing it like one of those masks that you don't adjust, because you can just select it and paint inside of it on a new layer without ever having really disrupting the mask. This guy's face probably needs a little. Smudge it a bit. Oh, that's crazy. What's going on there? Okay. Bigger. Now I can use the erase. Now I don't want to select this anymore. I want to actually have some control over it. So this guy's hat needs to change. Same with, I think, part of this guy's head. What is this thing? It's the back of his head. Why is it this color? I don't know. I need to look at the original. Oh, just shiny. Okay. Well, guess it's open to interpretation of what this part actually is. This part's his nose and his chin. But as far as the rest of this, I don't really know what this is, so I might kind of paint in a bit. Maybe a bit of white, black, and if you want some of that core shadow, or not the shadow, the indirect lighting, you might use the white, kind of go along his edge with a brush like that. But if you make it a bit bigger, go right along the edge, you might be able to lighten up in the corner. If you wanted to do that anyway. I don't really see myself needing to do that right now, maybe just right here. Or like around this edge. Nope, nope, yes. Knock some of this up. I'm erasing into the black. A bit smaller. Now I'm just cleaning up these edges again. I did this on the other one. I'm just kind of going over it. I mean, if you want to keep them very stark edges, then do it, by all means. But if you're trying to like blend it, that's what I'm kind of trying to do right now to make it look like more of a painting instead of like a straight vectored edge object. Like this is, I'm trying to knock parts of it off and kind of like airbrush in some shadows on the side. It kind of looks like it's supposed to be the front of the horse, so some parts of it would need to be a little bit darker. So I'm doing this. Oh, whoops, is it erasing? Yeah, erasing. Erasing. Bigger. This whole thing is pretty bright, so I might hit the whole thing with the dark. It's kind of interesting just narrating exactly what I'm doing. Maybe sometimes somebody will watch it. Be like, why are you talking to yourself so much? I don't know. Because it's boring. It's not boring. I like doing drawing. I've never really done this before with the intent of making it look like an airbrush. Since these are all kind of single shapes, I'll probably go back through and add a little bit of white to just highlight a couple. Highlight a couple areas. I think need a little bit more highlights in them. I'm doing it in a nice soft way. I don't know if I'm very happy with that, but we'll see how it goes. I'll continue. If you want to keep them harsh like that, do it. You don't need to do what I'm doing. The rest I'll probably just leave alone. Except for this one. This one needs to be a bit edged off. And this one maybe. And not just like straight color. I'll just kind of hit the edge with a, that's too dark. There we go. And for now, I think this looks pretty good. What layer is this? So this, I'm going to erase the line. Might erase a little bit into his fingers. There's a more harsh edge along this, that maybe. That's looking good. Where's his other hand? I don't know, that's what it looks like. This hat could probably use some work. What's it actually look like? Okay, so it's got a little bit of a shadow right here. Oops, no, it needs to be erased. And a little bit of shadow in general on this side. Just a bit more. Let's see what it looks like. It's so dark right there. I think that works. Oh, 10% battery left. Holy cow. I think this is working. It's not quite as dark. I'm okay with that. Let's see what this part looks like. It has super, actually, it has this layer on it. The whole head is actually still pretty white, so I'll just erase some more of this. Oops. Paint some more. Make it a bit bigger. Yep. And then go through and erase some of these spots where it should be a bit darker. Not that. Oh, okay. Erase. Too small. A little bit bigger. There we go. Paint a bit of a light. Indirect lighting. Clear out a bit. I think that looks pretty good. Oh, these pictures really use that indirect lighting like on the back of the hat that would be there normally. But it's not bad to add. Nope. Maybe I'll do that. A little bit of a line right there. Add some contrast. What is this? Soft brush? Soft airbrush? That actually doesn't look bad. So this is the blend. Blend, which is this finger, and I set to soft airbrush, and it actually does a much better job. So nice. I'll paint that back in just a bit. That's wrong spot. There we go. A bit on the back edge. But this one has a pretty good highlight on the top rim. There we go. Maybe a bit along the edge of his nose. Some of a part of that. And blend it a bit. Yeah, with these, there aren't really supposed to be edges, but that's my other types of art, like drawing, trying to add in edges. I want to knock this edge off. This is bad. So I'll go really, really hard right along this edge to really, really knock it off. And then really softly to blend it if I want. I'll do that here too. Really hard pushing, hard, hard, and soft. Sweet. I think this is the front of the horse. I'm going to knock this off and not connect it. Alright. A bit more brighter. Okay, this is starting to feel even better. Okay, so far I'm liking this. A bit darker. Erase on a bigger scale. Yeah, really darken. Oh, it's too dark. Just the edge of it. This hat looks a lot like it's part of that, so I'm going to have to change that later. Because that's part of the mask. Also, I noticed this horse. This is part of the mask. So this mask here, I'm just going to go back, paint black. Go back to calligraphy with a monoline. And because I can't tell, like this spot right here, doesn't look. It looks like there's supposed to be the horse's head right here, but it needs some sort of that, maybe, to help define that that's like the front of the horse's head. You know, same with this part. If I want to redefine this part a bit better, it's like, what is this part? I don't know, I might connect that like that, or better connect these lines so it looks more like it's a singular object. That's his foot. No, it's like a bag, but it catches my attention quite a bit, so I'm going to knock it off and make it more bag-like or something. Yeah. And just give this a little bit more definition. This part right here, oops. I'm gonna take this off a bit. To the next one, all these blobs down here, I'm not sure what they are. I drew them in, but now I'm just going to connect them. And this is me taking my own artistic liberty with it to try and make it make more sense as I look at it. Maybe move this in so it kind of looks a bit more like his head. This bottom of the hat looks a little, yeah, adding in like his ear. This looks a little smooth for like a cape or whatever, so I might add in some purposeful details. Now this guy here, I'll hit this in a little bit. And a lot of things aren't perfectly smooth, so I might add some bumps here and there, go along this edge. I don't like that. So let's do that. Maybe go along just the top part of his hat. That's too dark. Need to eyedropper this, and then no, it didn't work. Right along the edge of the hat. And maybe blend it a little. Yeah. This hat needs a bit more definition. There we go. Brush bigger. And the last part is this part of the hand. He's holding on to something, but feel almost like it's missing a part of his hand that's actually holding on to it. So I might add in just a bit of something else along here. Oops, I need to re-dropper that and go black because this is like a gray. There we go. Maybe have this sticking out. I'm just going to go over some of these edges because like what I said earlier where you resize and it doesn't look as good as the brush you're using, you kind of need to just go over some to make them kind of match. Like this stick, for example, I need to go over the edges so it's more pixelated or more defined so that it matches instead of it being like zoomed in like it was. And this needs to follow that a bit better. There we go. So where's this one coming from? This one probably needs to have a home. Where is that coming from? That's weird. Okay. I'll have it come like that then. Like that. Around those corners. Yeah, it looks like it's holding it. Yeah, it looks better. Down here on the hooves, I'll make that kind of cut in a bit. And then again, I'm just kind of going over the edges, defining it a bit. Alright. Another thing, whenever you see sharp corners like this, I almost always round them. Just because it helps not draw attention to it. Points like that always draw your attention to them. So if that's what your intention is, like, yeah, look at this hoof or something, then totally do a point. But if you don't want it to, or it's not the focal point, then always just round them. Which makes it easier on the eye. And then you can use other things to direct people's attention around. There we go. This looks like a foot. Okay, how's this horse going? This horse's feet look interesting, so I might kind of just add something that helps you believe that it's just a silhouette of it. Same with like here. Is that the right way to do it? Super tiny. Nope. I'll just make it. And if it doesn't look right, and you don't want to actually do it, you just make it intentionally look like it was supposed to be that way. 5%. Oh no. This part, lots of times there's like maybe straps on it. So I might add a little bit of like extra detail like that. Whatever this part is, this part's the front of the hoof, and it looks a little too rounded. So I might sharpen it a little, knock off the point. That looks better. think, yeah, this foot looks awesome. You can totally tell it's a foot. Nice and spurs. Nope. Define some of these lines just a bit. So now I'm going through and actually painting black on the edges to like define it. It's like inking something after you painted it. Yeah. I think that's looking okay. Now this top part needs a little smudge. And then erase. Tiny eraser. Okay. Okay. This part looks a little interesting, so oh, darkened a bit. It's catching my eye too much, as it should, but just not this much. This is a little bright. I'll smooth it just a bit. His face is a little bright too. Nope. Nope. Hey, Brett, what's up? Alright, so far I think this looks pretty good. Look back on the original. The original without the highlights on it. Nice. Now it looks like there's one more layer right here of signature. So I'll add that. I'm gonna add my signature. So I think that's actually where he wrote Shadow Writers. So go turn on a drawing guide. And then maybe over here, here's my signature. What's today's date? 2nd. 1, 2, 22. Yep. So now I'm going to grab everything. How do I grab everything? Oh, you knock them sideways like this. I'm going to move it all because it's, oh, that's weird. These aren't moving. Oh. Okay, move these. Move everything. Kind of make it fit. Nope. Let's move a bit more. There we go. Now for the last touch, I'll probably add a little square on here. So I'll drag, not too small. That's better. You can start from a point and just click and drag and hold, and it'll, oh, it needs to be bigger. I'll make this into a new layer too, so I can move it around. Think. And dump. And go back and turn off the drawing guide. Cool. Well, it looks close. Definitely not as detailed as the other one could be. But it's a good idea of how you can do it. Yeah, I can always just sit here and do it. Anyway.